who are deeply committed to helping veterans succeed in civilian careers. Rick Estrada is a Marine Corps veteran, talent acquisition leader with more than 20 years of experience hiring across utilities, energy, defense, cybersecurity, and government. He's built hiring strategies for mission critical roles and helped countless veterans translate their experience into opportunities where their skills truly matter. Joining him is Robert Pangaro, a retired Army Staff Sergeant who now leads veteran outreach and talent engagement at Guidehouse. With deep experience in military operations, logistics, workforce development, he helps veterans navigate the transition process, identify transferable strengths, and connect to meaningful missions in the IC and Department of Defense. Together, they bring real insight what employers are looking for, how to communicate your value, and into the private sector, and what builds successful post-service career service. What builds a good job. Sorry. Well, welcome, guys. I managed to cover it all for you. Anything else you'd want to top on to that I missed?
Rick, what you got? I think that sounded pretty good. That was better than I
I,
would have done for myself.
I think that's great. I did move on beyond crayons, so we're good.
Yeah, but I mean, you still love the flavor, right?
Goes without saying. Goes without saying.
Yeah, some things that you're never going to beat out of you. And there's nothing wrong with that. Crayola for the win. So I guess I can start off. I'll start off one. I'll start with Rick first and then Rob next. So, I mean, when you separated from the mill, what was your biggest unknown? What was the thing like, oh, crap, I better figure this out?
For me, it was I was in LAVs, right? So light armor reconnaissance, and it's like, well, how do I apply that to what I'm going to be doing? And I connected very much with human resources, talent acquisition, sourcing, and finding specific things. They give me list skill sets for, but it was where I was going to do that with, and I was fortunate in that I just happened to stumble into the right roles, and not I had non-veteran mentors, if you will, but very passionate in supporting the military. And I think different programs now teach on building your networks and relationships, but it was like I wasn't afraid to roll my sleeves up to take on whatever challenges came up. Who was like, who wants to learn how to do this? I was like, yep, I'll do it. I'll get certified in this, and that continued over from the Marine Corps. But it was really just taking that extra step and just saying, don't be afraid to be uncomfortable, and think, if you don't think you can do it, at least go try it. The worst they're going to do is tell you no, right? And that's where I started. I just dug into that, and I think it served me very well in the different industries that I worked in, from mining, drilling, explosives, pharmaceuticals, nutraceuticals, manufacturing, durable and non-durable goods, and into the recently energy utility space. And it's just that I just applied with what the Marine Corps gave me. Just overcome and adapt.
Got it. What about you, Rob? What was the big oh crap call for you, man?
Well, I think there was a lot of that, right? So I mean, I was a glutton for punishments. Technically, I transitioned twice. So I started,
Ooh.
in the 90s, I was with the Navy, went through, I was with a SWIC team. I did a lot of stuff through 9/11. And then I was like, I got to get out of the military. I was like, I had a kid on the way. So I transitioned then. And, back then, nobody told you what to do at all. You really didn't have a lot of transition, people to help push you aside or push you forward and give you any kind of, good advice. So I just went to college, started working right away. I enjoyed doing what I was doing. I was working with kids, so I love working with kids. I had my reserve time. I was still finishing out. But then I was like, you know what? I'm a glutton for punishment. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go in the army this time because I really felt like I'm not getting through life staying out here. I was already a teacher working with kids, and I loved it, but it just didn't pay the bill. So I was like, I'll go army. So I went through that. Went through selection, Green Beret, had a fun time there. Got way more injured when I was in the army. Came out with more metal in my body than I wanted, but that's life. And then here I am again, 2015-ish, looking to transition again, and I'm like, my God, what am I going to do? And again, especially when you're with smaller units, same thing. There's no one there doing transitions with you. You're pretty much just handing in your stuff, checking off the boxes, and getting out and figuring it out. So, um, for me, it was a lot of self-learning and a lot of research. And I was already into doing research anyway. I love that kind of stuff. But for me, it was really, how many times can I fail to learn what to do right the next time and continue doing that? I mean, I'd be remiss if I didn't say I still know what I want to do now. And I've been doing it for a number of years. So I think I'm always learning and growing. But that's kind of why I do what I do, because I failed so much and I was given so little when I transitioned out. I don't want everyone else coming out to go through the same thing I did. I mean, I look at veterans. I mean, I don't mean this in a demeaning way. I look at them like I look at my kids. Let me fail now so I can teach you how not to later on. And I take that really to heart when I'm talking with veterans and dealing with them. Like, look, I screwed up all this. What can I do to make you not hit those road bumps? So yeah, so for me, transition was tough just because I didn't have the help, and I just had to figure it all out on my own and kind of go through it. I didn't have a good group of guys that were helping me through it. I just literally powered through on my own, and thank God I had a good family support system. My wife and everybody and kids, they were awesome, but it was tough.
Yeah, that's especially the mistakes. We're really good at finding those things, that's for sure.
Oh yeah,
Um,
if there's a
and
pothole,
that's
I'm gonna hit it.
Yeah, exactly. Like some days I feel like I'm steering for it. But that I mean that's why you guys are here, is to kind of share that wisdom and drop that stuff. I mean, is there anything in there you think that really applies to these guys now as they're on skill bridge time, trying to find an OJT or figure out what they want to be when they grow up?
Go ahead, Rick. I'll let you go first, and then I'll chime in again.
Sure.
I think it's well, so for some of it, sometimes we don't know what we want to do, right? It's just like, okay, I need to make that transition. And it's really looking at, if you have an idea where you want to do, where are those jobs located? So they may be where you're currently at, or they may be in another city, state location. And then it's, do I know anybody there? It's like looking in your networks, or can you see? And it's building that part of it. That's going to be some of the work that you might need to, but leveraging those that you still remain contact with, who did get out, who may be in those, or looking for other veterans. I think it's going to be a big thing of not being afraid to start building that network in what you want to do.
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest things is how much we as veterans undervalue ourselves. So I'm going to tell you, this is one thing I found out today. It's like I'm one of those guys that loves looking at what's coming up technology wise, AI wise, all this stuff, right? And today was actually an eye opener for me. So I don't know who uses AI. If you
Oh,
do,
yeah.
for any reason whatsoever, go into it and literally type in something along the lines of, stop being nice to me. Tell me the honest truth, right? About who I am and what I'm doing. And I kid you, ChatGPT came up and said, "Are you sure you want to do this?" Because I literally said, "I will go into God mode." And literally, I kid you not, it literally chewed me out. I felt like I was getting chewed out by a drill sergeant almost by my ChatGPT, but it was in a most positive, demeaning
Productive.
way you could think about it. It was saying, like, you undervalue yourself. Here's your skill set. Here's what you need to do. Here's a plan to advance. And all I kept thinking to myself is, oh my God, this is what I'm telling all the veterans I deal with. And I'm not listening to it myself. So I think that's the biggest thing as guys are transitioning, whether it's Skill Bridge, hiring our heroes, 4 Block, because these are all programs we use for the military, MSEP, all of them is, there's a time and a place for you to say, hey, I don't know what I want to do. So there's programs for that, a shotgun experience into the private sector, a shotgun experience into what maybe you might want to do, like a general studies, I call it. But then on the flip side of that, if you know your worth and hey, this is where my passions lie, get those out there, because don't just settle for the next best thing. I understand bills got to get paid. I understand that stuff. So those are offshoots. If you need to do something, you do it. But at the same time, don't give up on the passion that you have if you know there's a direction you're going to go. Like for me, no matter what I'm doing, no matter how I'm working, there are 2 things that I am sure of in my life. I will work with kids. I will work with veterans. I don't care where it is, how it is, what it is. That will
Yeah.
always happen for me. So those are my 2 passions. And if my work aligns with that, great. But yeah, don't undervalue yourself, and don't be afraid to take the shotgun approach. If you don't know what you want to do, try a few different things. But if you know what you want to do, don't give up on trying to pursue that. That is absolutely for sure.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned like ChatGTP being, because like I use Grok for editing stuff, and like the
Mhm.
first time I was like, hey, you know what? Let me edit this chapter. It comes back and it's like, oh, you got a 9.4, blah blah. This is great. It's complimentary. I was like, no, I need you to be more critical. Then it goes down, it's like an 8. And I was like, I had to prompt it like 3 or 4 times before I was like, look, you need to be dirty, nasty, mean, and rude, but
Yep.
productive. And all of a
Yeah.
sudden, okay, there's the truth. And it's like down to a 4. And I was like, okay, I can work with this.
Yep,
Um,
exactly. Like we
but
need constructive criticism, especially as veterans. We're so used to that anyway, getting
yeah,
yelled at, getting told you're screwed up, getting told you're garbage because cement is, I mean, it's, you're supposed to get broken down to get built back up. We're not even, I'm not even comfortable with someone, and part of my French, kissing my ass. Like I need
yeah,
someone to tell me what's wrong, what do I need to fix, how do I move it forward?
yeah, it's the only way you're going to get better. And like using that stuff, just like you said, it reminded me, it was like I had to do the same exact thing, but I had to
Mhm.
prompt it a few times before it was finally like, okay, I'm here to crush your soul.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
And it worked. Speaking of, I'm sure you kind of picked up on some skills, Rick and Rob, with that kind of stuff. So, we're constantly heard like, hey, the leadership skills you bring from the military are important, or this or that. And we get that a lot, but kind of, what do you think some skills are that we overlook? Where you're like, you would not believe how important that stuff is, and nobody gets it.
Well, I've noticed, Rob, and I think Rob has also seen, I won't speak for Rob though, but a lot of times interviewing at a management consulting firm like ours, right? We have a lot of veterans who go, well, I've never done consulting. Yes, you have. We've
Oh
all
yeah.
done it. We've all done it. You're inherently a consultant, right? Do other, in the consulting worlds, do they come to you for advice, directions? Are you influencing change? Are you influencing based on your subject matter expertise? You inherently are a consultant. It's a matter of translating similar experiences, right? To your interviewers. There are some companies who have no idea, right? And they just see your resume, or they think, oh well, we're gonna have to teach you everything. You've learned a lot, right? And here we have project management skills to some degree. We've managed budgets, right? And we've saw leadership also. And so it's those kind of things that I try to call out. I've noticed, and I say, you are a consultant. You do have project management skills. You do have budgeting skills. And it's just a matter of explaining that so that they understand. But go ahead,
Mm,
Rob.
Yeah,
yeah.
and I think there's probably I have two parts to this. Like one is setting expectations before they come in to a company like ours. Like Rick and I think we're notorious for, and I'm like, to be blunt again, like we are notorious for serving slices of humble pie to veterans that want to come into a company like ours. So we'll have individuals of all different ranks who believe like, hey, I did X, Y, and Z. That means you're going to make me a director, or you're going to make me this. And it's like, well, sir, yeah, senior NCO, no, you're not worth that much because of X, Y, and Z. Now, you know, I can articulate even younger junior guys to get more money sometimes because they're bringing a skill set to the table. But I think one thing that I have found to be probably the most important, that's both, I think we as veterans have it, but we need to learn how to kind of mold it to the private world, is our networking and relationship building. There is not any amount of money or anything I can put on that ability, because at the end of the day, as consultants, especially, our relationships with the client is what brings in business to the company. And building those relationships and building that repertoire is what we are able to then go chase after more projects and chase after more work. And our reputation is what precedes us. So, especially in the defense space, it's almost a no-brainer when we have veterans that are in leadership that can go talk the talk and walk the walk with these high-level entities and really sell themselves as part of Guidehouse, because then all of a sudden they're like, oh, okay, you understand our culture, you understand what we're doing. So when we have a veteran that can do kind of put on both hats, and it's almost like wearing half uniform, half business suit. Like if you can go in and talk the talk, but then also bring the business aspect into it, building that relationship and being able to communicate in that style is a win-win for everybody, especially in a business like ours.
Mhm. Talk to me about Guidehouse. What is a Guidehouse does?
Go ahead, Rick.
He's like, that's you.
We're Yes, we're a management consulting firm, right? But we try to differentiate ourselves from our competitors, as in we don't want to have just a standard script and this is what you want to do. We try to solve our clients' problems by outwitting their complexity. How do we do that, right? Thinking outside of the box, looking at what hasn't been done, proposing, actually listening to our clients, and what is it right now that you're dealing with, but they may not be aware that in 5 years they're going to be dealing with these situations, right? And we have experts in all parts of our organization that where when we come in, it's not just to sell them one solution. We want to partner with them, and it's a matter of bringing our whole capabilities to them, but building relationship, trust, right? Listening to them, and then knowing when to bring those capabilities in, and that applies from our defense and diplomacy intelligence practice to our communities, energy infrastructure, state and local government, finance sector, life science, healthcare, all across that. It's where we're trying to do that across, and then leveraging, Rob mentioned, AI, machine learning, platforms, application developments. We have our technology capabilities that we're also integrating into our solutions and trying to, again, outmaneuver and our competitors, but at the same time, trying to solve not only today's problems, but future problems. Rob?
Yeah, no, and I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. That's pretty much everything we do here. The one thing I would add into it, like especially when we're talking with people, and it wouldn't matter who we were bringing on board, veterans or non-veterans. There's people that come to us that think like, oh, I saw a role in finance, for the Department of Defense. Like, I don't really want to work with the government anymore. Well, we call them horizontals here. So like literally every segment, whether it is state and local government, healthcare, digital, finance, like commercial banking and finance, and then the Department of Defense and public sector, they all have finance. They all have technology. They all kind of have roles that fit in there. So if you have individuals that are like, I want to do tech, I've been with the government forever. I hear Guidehouse is really big on government work. That's not all we do. We literally touch everything in consulting from the ground up, even construction. We do construction out in Huntsville. We have people that come on board and do project management. So where some companies are niche, they're just finance, or that's their specialty, or they're just tech. We literally, if you think there's consulting in something, we touch it. We do it. It might be a smaller engagement. It might be a bigger engagement, but there's something within Guidehouse that we do in that realm. So
what are some of the surprising like AFSCs, MOSs, rates and stuff that you guys go, oh yeah, you've got a job. You just got to nail it here. I mean, are there any ones that are much stronger where you're like, hey, I'm beating up the band to find these people?
well, I'll tell you my opinion because I know everyone's probably of a different branch, right? So,
Sure. Yeah.
and we're all going to have biased opinions there. So for me, anyone that wore a long tab in the Army, I'm going to look for two reasons. One, they usually have a very high clearance. And I need people with high clearances to work in the intel space. So that's just a given as to where I know I can go find them. And then the other part of that is individuals that have done that kind of work, one, have that relationship and communicative style that's not, I hate to use this terminology, but like the big military, big Army, big Navy, because I've been in both of them, right? There's less of that hierarchy thought and more of that I can walk into a room, talk to anybody because we all put our pants on the same way and I'm not going to be intimidated by your level or your title. So those are the individuals I like to go after because I need people to come in and lead because I do a lot of work with the Army contracts. I do a lot of work with Intel. So if I can find those individuals, that's always a given. And then honestly, right now we're so big up on data and digital and tech side. If I have individuals that have any kind of certifications through the military for tech, I'll eat them up too. So any of those people that have any kind of clearance, I'll take them with tech experience. But Rick?
No, in my segment, it's just the opposite. I usually look for those that, don't get me wrong, we can leverage that, but you're not going to use your clearance in our segment, right? So, but I end up looking for a wide range and from a policy type background, any type of engineering, if they've done even combat engineering and systems, any type of systems engineering to tech, tech role, cybersecurity, like Rob was mentioning, we can apply that, cybersecurity across state and local, public agencies as well as utilities. We can train them some of the specifics, and then we look, I look also for what were some of the responsibilities that they were handling, and identify them where I have the needs, and then we look for those who have done like finance. I don't get into much of the financial management, but they have a financial type background. There are some of those needs as well as utilities. So I do try to be a little broad on that, but also trying to keep in mind when I do reach out to them, what are you looking for? What ultimately would you like to be doing if you could, right? Like, where would you like to be doing that as well? Because I do have a lot of teams may be limited on where they can hire. So that's the other thing is, where are they wanting to go or not wanting to be at?
Yeah, like I don't want to go back to Fayetteville. Okay, I understand that.
I kind of liked Fayetteville. Well, all right, I didn't like Vietnam, but I did love Fort Bragg.
Yeah. Well, I mean, unfortunately, it's there.
Yeah.
It's kind of ruined things. Like, so when you're setting these guys up to talk with a hiring manager, is there anything you coach them like, hey, this is a non-military hiring manager, he or she doesn't have that vernacular, that experience? Is there anything in particular you coach them and say, when you go into the interview, do or don't do?
Yeah, I think I probably do that more than most, just because I don't want anyone to screw up like I screwed up in the past. So for me, I am literally looking at their resume. And a lot of times I will literally, if I talk to a veteran who has not applied to a role yet within Guidehouse, because once you apply, your resume's in the system, there it is. Doesn't mean you can't replace it or put a new one in, but it's there, someone's seen it. So if I have a veteran that I know has not applied yet, I'll usually have them send me their resume, because I will help rewrite it and make it sound more or less military-ish, and try to go through it and make it seem like, it's a super professional. But then the other part of it is, the coaching is, I think to your point, exactly what you said, I know who my hiring managers are that are veterans. So I'll tell them that, hey, they're a veteran, feel more comfortable talking the talk and being able to articulate yourself. But then on the flip side of that, sometimes I do have to be like, hey, you're going to be talking with a hiring manager who maybe has a stigma about veterans, who maybe thinks like, oh, like they're coming in, they're hard-headed, blah, blah, blah. And I've heard that before, right? We don't have a lot of them, but you can't get away from them no matter what company you go to. I try to get to know who they are, and I try to build the relationship. Rick tries to build a relationship with them so they get to know us. So then they're a little softer on the veterans we bring. But I will articulate that to the veteran too, like, hey, this is someone that's going to be questioning you and what your mentality. It's not about what work you did in the military. It's not about the skill set you're bringing. 9 times out of 10, for me anyway, and maybe Rick, you have another side of this, but 9 times out of 10, it's are they going to come in and just want to do things their way? Are they going to want to come in and, are they going to have that hard-headed military mentality and everything? And it's like, some of them will, some will, and I have to soften the veteran up. So I think a lot of that coaching comes to helping with the resume, which that's easy, but then saying, hey, here's the person you're talking to. You're going to want to come at them from this perspective, not military's perspective, or vice versa if it is a veteran.
Right. And to add to what Rob was saying, the other thing that try to add on that is, what Rob was also referencing is, be yourself. We want you to be yourself, be mindful of your audience first off, but be yourself, in who you are. But I always also try to tell those veterans that I'm working with is, you should be interviewing us. You should have a list of things. Is this the right role, the right team, the right company? I think it's the right company to consider, but it's a matter of you finding the right role and team for you. And don't be afraid to ask them, how are you going to help me in my career? How do I advance? I also tell them, don't ask them, how many hours do I have to put in, or what is my schedule? The job's a job. You could be 50, 60 hours. I just said, don't worry about the hours or the schedule. First find out, is this the type of work that you can see yourself doing or building from? But those are some of the additional things I try to add when I'm talking to.
It's funny you mentioned the schedule thing, because after the military, a lot of us are a little how should we say, gun shy, because we walked in the door thinking, okay, yeah, it's the military, it's gonna be a schedule. All of a sudden we're working 10 12s in a row. Is there a safe way to broach that subject? Because, between salary and hourly, obviously the expectations are different. But I've never heard anybody kind of elucidate. Here's a good way to ask that question without asking that question.
So I honestly think that when you come into that, the best way to approach that is, again, not straight out, what are my work hours? What are this? Like kind of Rick was saying, but there is nothing wrong with saying, hey, what's the on-site expectation for someone in my role? That's the perfect way to say it, because that's going to, one, tell them what they expect from you, even work-wise. That'll open the door for them to say, hey, if it's hybrid, here's what's expected when you're home. Here's what's expected here. Hey, it's cleared space. We need you on site 5 days a week because there's cleared work and you can't do that from home. So I think that's the best way to say it without, coming across like, hey, I need to know if I'm doing my 30 or 40 and I'm out, right? No, but what is the on-site? That's the key terminology. We even use that as, like, me and Rick, when we're talking to hiring managers, when we're asking them about the role before we put it out there to hire people to, our exact words are, hey, when we talk to people, what's the on-site expectation? So we know what to articulate to the team. And usually people like Rick and myself will actually be the ones answering that question for the veteran, non-veteran when they get to us. But if you're going to ask a hiring manager, use that terminology.
That's great. You had something to add to that, Rick?
I just said the other thing would be, what is the travel expectations, which could add to what your work hour could be, your week. If it's a high amount of travel, if they say 50 to 75%, not all roles are that way though, but there's the probability you're going to be doing some night and, so you may be obviously doing more than 40 hours if you have a high travel, on-site responsibility outside of the area that you're normally based.
Got it. Yeah, I mean, I love the way you put that question, because it's asking the same thing, but you're also coming across of, I want to make sure I'm there the whole time for you. It's a good positive spin. That's write that one down, folks. That's probably about the best way I've heard that answered. On the flip side of things, so when we're talking about the great things that we can do, what are some of the landmines you've seen when we talk about leadership experience? Because obviously there is a huge stigma between military and civilian leadership differences, whether it's earned or not.
Go ahead, Rick. You tackle it first. You're a Marine. I'm sure there's a lot that comes with being a Marine. Go ahead.
No, well, we have to also impart that regardless of your background level, we still need to teach you the Guidehouse way. So we try to impart that regardless of what level you're coming in, we still have to set the expectations and how Guidehouse does it, we do get some that will ask, well, am I going to get direct reports right off the bat, and it will depend. The hiring team will have to determine that, but we end up saying, you are expected or indirectly expected to coach and mentor junior staff, just like you've done, in the military, right? That is something that because we want you to teach, we want to also teach so that you can then take on more responsibilities as they learn and are able to do some of the things that you were working on. You're able to take on those responsibilities for the next level up to show that you can take on and grow. And the quicker that they can do that, the quicker you might be able to move up. Rob?
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, it definitely comes down to, like, back to the original conversation about giving a slice of humble pie. There are, all right, and hopefully we all have thick skin on this call. I'm going to be honest about who I get it the most from. Junior officers and usually mid-level enlisted. It's actually the most senior people that are the most flexible and moldable, because they've been there, done that, and they kind of understand, I'm going to have to take a pay cut. There's no way I'm coming in at this, right? So I don't usually have to argue with them as much, but it is definitely that mindset of, I've done this in the military, and I can understand when you've done so much, you think I'm worth so much, and you are. Like, you really are. I don't want to ever take that away from a veteran. We are worth way more than we will ever get paid, no matter what job we have. We've done more. We've sacrificed more. There's nothing I can say beyond that. I do not get paid enough. Rick does not get paid enough to deal with the crap we deal with every day. But with that said, you have to understand that in the civilian world, we're not worth that much in their eyes. And neither is someone who's a non-veteran. And that's where you kind of need to put your mindset of, if I wasn't a veteran, what would I be expecting? So I think, yeah, coming in with that mentality of, I know it all, I've done it all, or people owe me this. You have to get that out of your mind. Like, no
Entitlement.
offense. Like at the end of the day, yes, again, I agree. Every person in this country owes us all a debt of gratitude. However, we will never get it. And you need to get that mindset out and say, look, I'm worth just as much as the next person. What am I going to do to make sure that I stand out though? So
Yeah, yeah, it's not, I mean, there is a sense, I have definitely seen this sense of entitlement. And, one of the examples, I'll go back to what you said before I do that, but, one of the examples I saw, I had a lieutenant colonel I was hiring into a position for, like a director position. And at 180 grand a year, he was like, nah, it's about 20 shy of what I should be getting. This guy was like working at the Pentagon, and I was looking at him and going, dude, that's 20 more than anybody else would get. And he passed on the job. I don't know what happened to him, but he had that entitled feeling. And something that you'd said earlier, Rick, about, like we should be, focusing on training those next people coming up. One of the things, I had a supervisor, she was great about saying, and not great about doing it, but she had said that, your job in the military is to train your replacement. And when I went into the civilian workforce, I mean, I still remember one particular one, this woman, first job out of college, learning recruiting. So I took her under my wing. I was like, hey, let's teach you this stuff. And I had other people coming to me. And the problem I ran into, and I'm curious if you do, is I think my boss thought I was gunning for her job because I was doing the military thing of taking care of the people around me without going up. I mean, have you seen that? What's your advice on those?
oof.
Because I definitely didn't want her job.
No, I'm going to be honest. I think that is one of the biggest assets we as veterans have, but one of our biggest drawbacks. I'm right there with you. I think if you come in, with the mindset of, I can do the job, but I'm adaptable and I overcome. And if I see a problem, I'm going to tackle it, whether it's my problem or not. And I'm going to try to fix things. And I think that's kind of most of our mentality. The problem with that is, and Rick, I'll let you kind of chime in too, but the problem with that is, and
You
I've
got
seen
something
it
to
a
say.
million times, I've dealt with it. It intimidates people, and it will definitely intimidate those ahead of you because, like, to your point, they either think you're gunning for their job or they think that you're going to show other people that they are not good at their job. And that's, and I hate to say that that's not a me problem, that's a you problem, which it really is. But at the end of the day, when it comes to corporate world, you don't want to do that because that will again go back to harming the relationships and burning bridges that you very well might need down the road to get yourself promoted and get yourself moved up. So, what do you think, Rick?
I did have a similar experience before I got here years before. I was interviewing for a role with the state of Utah, and and proverbial question came up. What would you like to do? And I answered. I said, well, I see myself. I explained how I saw the role, and in 5 years, I'd like to be doing what you're doing, so that way you can move up. And that interviewer's eyes just got big and was like scribbling down. And needless to say, I didn't get the job.
He's gunning for my desk.
That's what it was. It's like, oh, no, 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 I don't want to. They wanted someone that would stay in the role basically indefinitely and not looking for promotion.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty short-sighted because we come from a organization where you are told and you are expected to work those next steps to move up because there's no such thing as like, hey, I'm totally happy at E5. Let's cut this stuff and just let me turn wrenches. I mean, that doesn't happen, so it becomes part of the culture. But as soon as you take it on the other side, that was I didn't know until after I was gone, until somebody told me like, hey, just so you know, and then the lights came on. I was like, I wasn't looking for a job. I had a great one. I loved it. But a lot of these things come with networking, you guys alluded to. So, I mean, if we had, say, 30 minutes a week to network outside of LinkedIn, because we hammer that, what are some of your ideas there?
Well, I think one is trying to find whether it's veterans or not. I mean, there's always a bunch of social networks within different areas that handle certain things. Like for Guidehouse, well, not even Guidehouse, but in the National Capital Region, I know there's social events in which different consulting firms get together for social events where there's people that hang out there, and they allow it open to the public where you can kind of find out where they're going on. There's mentorship programs. There's a lot of different things that if you do your research, you'll find things locally that I think are amazing ways to get not necessarily a job, but to get your face in front of someone who might be able to introduce you to someone who can get you a job. It's just about finding, again, the realm that you want to be in. If you want to be in defense, find the people that are hanging out and grouping up and talking about defense stuff. If you want to be in healthcare, find the healthcare people. You want to work with kids, find the kid that, do whatever it does. Find the groups that fit your personality and fit what you're going to do. And then honestly, I mean, LinkedIn is great for an initial introduction. I am all about using LinkedIn to connect with people. I do it all the time when I find individuals that are in the realm I want to be in, which I've seen a few people add me already. So awesome. But then with that, if they are local to you, set up a coffee meet and greet. Don't just rely on doing everything through tech, because there is still something to be said about a handshake and a conversation that isn't on video. If you have to do it, that's great. But if you live within an hour of me and you connect with me and you tell me you want to get together for coffee, I'll make the drive. Because I think that's important. As a person from what I do, whether you come to Guidehouse or not, I don't care. I will still drive to meet you, have coffee with you, and talk about what you want to do in life and what I can do to help you. Again, even if you're not coming to Guidehouse, doesn't matter. So, Rick, what do you got?
No, I think just to add to that, I mean, there are other, in regards to certification or industries like that you're interested in wanting to learn, then finding out if I think there's what is that app or program, Eventbrite starts putting a lot of things out for things in your community, right? You can try to find, and sometimes it's, you may not know nothing about it, but if you're interested in it, start signing up, go listen to a few things, informal sessions, or if they are hosting something. Sometimes at universities, they'll put it up, they'll be open to the public for certain different topics, that they're like a learning session, if you will. Those are great ways just to start meeting other like-minded people outside of what maybe you normally would do. And it's building that, because you never know, that person you build there may know somebody else, and or they might be able to learn from you.
Have you guys gone to any events where you're like, I got roped into this. This is going to suck. And it turned out, oh man, this was awesome. Just curious, like what kind of events that surprised you that one of us might overlook?
I think there's probably a lot of those that I feel are really, because I try to go in with an optimistic mindset, but I also know history speaks for itself, right? So for me personally, I will say, like, hiring events always surprise me. I try to tell everyone to take advantage of all those free events that happen, right? I know there's some skill bridge gatherings. I know there's a lot of, whether you're in the program, because hiring our heroes is under the umbrella of skill bridge. If you see those are all free. You can just show up to them. So those are amazing ones. Rick, what about 4Block? I'm not sure how that invite kind of works for people that are interested, because those are really good networking events.
They're great networking events, but you do have to sign up to some regards for to get on their list, so that you do have to do a little bit. They'll do a little bit of vetting, like, are you a veteran, or are you just interested in helping veterans? But that is one, yes.
Yeah, so those are all great networking avenues, but going back to it, like, there are plenty of times where I go to like a hiring event, I'm like, oh man, this is gonna suck. Like, but I kid you not, it only takes one person to turn those things around for somebody, right? Like one connection. If I can go into an event and literally, I'll talk to literally, there's events Rick and I have gone to where there's 2,000-3,000 people in these events between a couple of days, and you know what? If I talk to like 3 amazing people, I'm good. Like, I don't need to talk to everyone. So I think that's the thing, is like, yeah, you might be going into these events, you might be thinking, like, this is gonna waste me away for 3 days. My soul is gonna be like sucked out of me. But then literally, again, it takes one person to be like, oh, it was worth it. It was worth it because I made a connection, which, for me, one of the connections I made was actually through one of the leaders of MSEP to bring in military spouses, where we were trying to get in, couldn't do anything. And I was like, man, this whole event just is horrible. And I just happened to be walking around, heard her over talking to something. I met up with her, and then boom, all of a sudden now we're working on bringing a lot of spouses in, and we have another person running that program. But it was through a connection of that we were getting more spouses involved with us than we would have if we didn't.
That's awesome. So one of the things we hear a lot is like, somebody brought it up earlier today that, we tend to go to a job, the first one out lasts about 6 months, then we're on to the next one, which doesn't surprise me. But do you think that, in the situation we're in, getting out of the military is no paycheck? Do you think spray and pray and then look for the real gig after that? Or do you think there should be more pressure on look for the real gig immediately and then bite the bullet in the meantime?
Go ahead, Rick.
You gotta set you up every time.
That's all good. No, it's all good. I mean, it will vary, right? Because it does depend on financially. Can you afford to not go without another? Is all what I advise some of the veterans that I work with. That's fine. If you can financially buy yourself something, don't jump on the first thing that you're offered, right? Or if it's not what you want to do, but then you do have to outweigh, is this something you can see yourself, or are you just doing this to pay the bills? And I can't answer that for you. I can't answer that for somebody else. It's like you literally have to have that conversation, or if it's a family conversation, then have that family conversation. But I was in that situation where I had to find something. Like, shit, I just took it like, damn, I need to pay the bills. I need to keep moving, and we had a newborn, still all those expenses that go with that. So, but it still gave me some time to, okay, well, let me first build some skills, network, and I started stumbling into other things. So, but I think it does depend on what can you financially afford to do or not.
And I think one of the things to piggyback on that is, if you do take one of those roles, be able to articulate why it might be different than what your path is going to be, right? Like if you jump into a job because you do need that money, which I did the same thing, as you're moving on and people look back and look at your resume and they're like, well, you did this though for a short period of time, be able to explain why. And there's nothing wrong with saying, hey, I just transitioned out of the military. I had bills to pay. I have a kid. I have a newborn. I have whatever your story is, just be able to articulate it. Because the one thing hiring managers want to know is that you're truthful with them, whether it's gaps in work or jumping from job to job for like a short period of time. Because there are times where we'll look at resumes and I'm sure, Rick, you've had to deal with this, where I'll look at it and I'll say, there was someone that jumped a couple times, right? Now, a hiring manager looking at that right off the bat might be like, yep, never mind, next resume. But then we get to look at it first and say, well, right. Especially a veteran, I can be like, I can tell the story of why. So now I'll go to the hiring manager and be like, look, I need you to ignore this, and this is why, and this is the story. Now look at the rest of it though, because it paints the whole picture. And then all of a sudden someone will get moved through. So being able to articulate that though is going to be very important if you do end up putting yourself in that kind of circumstance. Because again, we've all been there. I know last thing I'm going to tell someone is don't take a job at even McDonald's if you need to feed a kid. Like I'll be the first one to raise my hand and go do drive-through if my kid needs to eat. I don't care. And if you're going to question me on it, I'm going to tell you I had a kid to eat. So if they need to, they need to eat, I'm going to do whatever I have to do to make sure there's food in their mouth. So.
Yeah, I echo that, and I'm never afraid to take a job to put food on the table, pay the bills, and whatever it was. I didn't care the title, whatever, but the one thing about what Rob was saying, I wanted to add, I tell also veterans that I work with, is when you explain that, be careful that you're not bad mouthing that company. So be very careful, be critical of that, right? That you can speak to what the work environment was like, or if it was, I've even been in a company where I was asked to do some very unethical shit, excuse me. I was like, I'm not signing that. There's no way. And needless to say, I wasn't there very long because of that. But it's how you explain it, but just be careful. You're not doing it in a way that you're bad mouthing or bad talking that organization, because then a hiring manager will look at, oh, okay, that, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that was something we were taught, like in recruiting. Hey, when we have some kid coming by the table, don't tell them how the Army sucks, the Navy sucks, or whatever, because all that's going to do is drive me the other way. And I had that happen. I had one recruiter that would say how awful we were. I had applicants come to me. It was like the smart one saying, "Man, that guy sure was afraid of you guys. I figured I'd come over and ask the questions and see why." I was like, "You get it." And that was my wake up call. Like, yeah, that's why I say don't talk smack. But once you get that veteran through there, what are the big green flags that you've seen on veteran stuff where the hiring manager's like, yeah, I want to interview? Are there any like consistent green flags in there to avoid the red ones? Like
Well,
something that universally says, "Oh yeah, I want to talk."
yeah. So I'll speak to like my specific roles that I deal with. So my portfolio, so to say, is everything financial management within the Department of Defense and the intel community. That's what I deal with. So for someone like me, specifically for those roles, clearance and finance work doesn't mean you need a degree in finance, doesn't mean you need anything. Now there are some roles that require like, and a lot of guys will get them in the military, like CDFM, like those certifications that you need for financial work within the military. But clearance first, then those type of backgrounds or type of work. Guidehouse wide, I'm looking for someone that has like operational, some operational knowledge, project management knowledge, those kind of things, to where I can sell them to other segments in work, whether that's healthcare too, so every segment has their own specifics. But for me, again, finance, certifications and clearance is number one. Yeah. Rick, what do you got in yours?
I'll look at a wider, because we do have state, local government on the non-clear type, but I will look at logistics, motor T, if you will, right? And in addition to, I saw a question earlier or a comment earlier, explosive ordnance. I'm an Army brat. My father, EOD, so I grew up around explosive energetic materials, right? So I look for that as well. And then if it's anything related to construction, engineering, policies, I will start looking for those things, also for our segment, but even in other cases, if it's not very clear, if I'm not certain, I think Rob and I are one of those handful of that we'll just pick up the phone and call, like, "Hey, you applied. I didn't quite see it. Tell me what don't I know? Tell me about, what am I missing?" And aside from the clearance, where we know that there are things that we can't put in there, you can't put in there, right? And we can infer, but if I'm uncertain, we will just flat out just call.
Yeah.
Schedule some time with you.
And that's something I've noticed is different about folks in recruiting that are for military rather than not. I much more often get that response like, I'll pick up the phone and see what's missing over a straight civilian recruiter where it's kind of a coin toss. Some will do it and some are like, next, onto it. Just kind of
Well,
the nature of that beast.
and to that, there are more organizations that don't put experienced recruiters in recruiting roles. They just put in
Oh
junior
yeah.
talent because they have a limited budget. They don't realize the strategic importance of an experienced recruiter.
Mhm.
And that they do is they look at, "Oh, this is the qualification I'm looking for. I didn't see it on that resume. So next.
Yeah, all the time. Hey, so this is kind of my last one. Unless anybody's got any questions, now it's time to fire them out there. And in the meantime, actually, everybody with a secret clearance, just so these guys see, just throw a one in the comments. If you got a clearance and up, because obviously, you guys have got the market cornered there on
There you
that
go.
one for clearances.
I'm actually gonna throw our veteran email in the chat. If you want, feel free to inundate us with all your resumes, because we'll take it and we'll look at it.
There
But
you go.
we have a veteran specific email for us.
Email.
You send it to veteranhiring@guidehouse.com, and then really Rick and I are the only ones in that inbox. So we'll go through it and look at everyone's resume.
Yeah, that's awesome. I figured I'd throw that one at you because you keep saying, need clearance. Like, we got them.
Oh yeah, well, that's a lot of ones. I'm just gonna say I can't even scroll that fast.
Yeah, that was an easy one. But hey, like I said, this is my last one. If you could go back, you got 1 month before you get your DD 214. You're looking for work. You go back in time, whisper in your ear something. What would it be?
God, that's a tough one. I'd probably tell myself not to go to college for what I went to college for, because it didn't get me anywhere to begin with. I'll be honest. I was kind of looking. So I'm Well, one thing I will tell you, and I think everyone should always take this mindset, is be a lifelong learner, right? Like I've gone to college more times than I can count. I went to college when I got out of, when I was in the Navy, I went for psychology. After I got out of the Navy, I'll be honest, I went to Bible college for 4 years. Then I went back to college for a communications degree with law and policy. Then I went back for a PhD in public policy and administration. I'm getting ready to go back to University of Massachusetts for my MBA. Like these are all things that I'm like, this is great. Like I want education, but nine times out of 10, the main fact is every degree I got didn't get me anywhere. So it's not about the paper on your wall. It's about what you're doing, right? But if I was to really streamline knowing what I know now, I would have told myself to go for an MBA right off the bat. Like get my degree, my undergrad and get my MBA done because there are so many jobs within my realm where the LCATs dictate that if you have an MBA, it literally wipes away and waives a number of other credentials you need to get that job if you have the MBA. So for me, it's really about if I can go back knowing what I want to do, I would go back and be like, hey, Rob, you got to focus on these few things because if you go for a degree in communications and journalism, you're not going to do anything and no one's going to care what you want to write about. Like, why are you wasting your time? So I think that's it. Do the research as to what you want to do and what will get you there. Because the one thing that kind of pushed me in that direction was honestly Voc Rehab. As much as I love that program, I mean, it gives you everything you need. The mentors or whatever they call them now that were assisting were like, hey, like take this degree. It's the easiest one to get in, get out, and try to get a job. And I just kind of ran with it because it was easy. I think it was just an easy path for them to also track and get me out of it. So do your due diligence, find out what you want to do, and at least have a path of both education and experience that you want to obtain before you get into that career field or what you want to do to get farther in that career field.
And are you going to Eisenberg? I'm guessing school the remote one.
Yeah, the remote one. Yeah, I'm not going all the way up there now.
Yeah, it's like 20 minutes up the road for me. It's a mess.
Nice.
I get it. Rick, what are your thoughts, brother?
I mean, for me, it's well. First, I want to add on to what Rob just mentioned there. When you're looking at what you want to do, don't focus so much on what is hot today, because that it's going to change in 5 years. So look to see, is that going to evolve? What might it evolve to? So do some additional work to that, right? For me, I was very, I was very interested in a lot of things, right? And ultimately found out I really love utilities and cybersecurity, right? And I wish I would have networked or found somebody that I could have mentored under or could have, who could have been my sponsor and mentor. And I just didn't have that, now I do. And that's kind of how I got to this organization, is because of the networking and the passion that I have for that, though. But I'm not an expert by any means. I continue to always learn. That's a big thing for me. Is just like the more I learn, I realize the less I know.
Yeah, that's a fact. So, any closing thoughts? Oh, actually, John, go ahead, sir.
Hey guys, it's John. How you doing?
Good. How are you, John?
Doing well. Looking forward to that cup of coffee, Rob. So I'm looking at a lot of the postings on Guidehouse right now, and there's a lot of so I'm in Charlotte trying to get into financial project management, and there are several things like minimum 3+ years experience doing this or do that. And I've noticed in other job postings where the minimum is like capitalized, bold, italicized, underlined, everything. How lenient, I guess you could say, is that minimum requirement?
So yeah, so on any of our job postings, when you're looking at it, there's two sections, right? There's three technically. It's the what you will do, the what you will need, and the what's nice to have, right? For us, if it's under the what you will need, you have to click off all those boxes. If you don't click off one of them, unfortunately, we can't do anything with you.
Okay.
At least for that role. I don't want to say anything with you, but for that specific role that usually aligns with the LCATs that we need for that role, which the government is saying, hey, they have to have this education specifically, this, that experience, everything like that. Now, if you hit those and you don't hit any of the nice to haves, don't worry about it. Like that doesn't mean you're not eligible. We'll take you, we'll put you through the process and see what we can do. Now, with like you were saying for your background, if you're looking for something in financial, work or whatever, and you're in Charlotte, like for me, I would be like, oh, cool, John, send me your resume because I know you're in Charlotte. I don't have anything in Charlotte, but guess what? We just won a huge award to where I can put people anywhere that have financial backgrounds, but I have to look at again, what's the rest of your resume tell me? What's the
Yeah.
story you have? What certs, what background, what education? Because that would determine what LCAT you fit in roles like that. So the biggest thing I can say is if you don't see something on Guidehouse that specifically fits you or you fit the bill for, that goes back to don't apply to anything. Reach out to me or Rick, send us your resume. Let us look through it and say, oh, you know what? You did X, Y, and Z in the military, or you did this, this, and this. You actually do meet the requirements, but let's reword your resume because if it's not fixed now, the hiring manager will never see it and you'll never get through the process. But yeah, Rick, what do you got?
No, I mean that is the case even outside, for a lot of our other practices and segments because of for our staffing guidelines, right? There's a minimum that we do. We're trying to do better of putting that in lieu of. If you see that in lieu of,
Yeah.
then yes, but it still goes back to email us, if you're not seeing that match up. Charlotte, that's more of an energy provider's location. We service Duke Energy out of that location primarily. It's a smaller office, so there's not a large Guidehouse office. But for us, locations will also indicate if you see remote US, then that's where we have a lot of home office, remote US. That's where we have a lot of flexibility on where in the country you can be hired under. But in some cases where we do get very limited, that's the only place if you only see Guidehouse office, this one, Guidehouse or client office, that one, and that's it. But it goes to also those qualifications, because even if we can play with that, they may or may not be able to hire someone if you're not in that location.
Cool. Sounds good. Yeah, there's a lot of the jobs that I saw that were like being willing to commute to New York City 3 days a week. I'm like, I don't know
So
about
you'll
that
you'll
one, but
find you'll find that a lot of our like commercial finance type roles, they're based
Mhm.
out of mostly our New York City office. That's where our
Right.
finance area is. But with that said, our government finance work is everywhere.
Yeah.
Like I said, we just came, and that's why I say definitely send your resumes off because, and this goes for any skill set. We usually have a number of roles either coming up or on the horizon that we might be able to fit people into, or at least put you as a potential down for. Finance for me is one of those because I have roles that aren't posted online right now, but in the next like month, 2 months past the new year, I know I'm going to have them. I know they're getting ready for them because we won awards. This was award season. We got a lot of stuff in. So it's like we're just kind of like in the preliminary of like, all right, where are we going to post these? What are we going to do with these?
Mm.
Where some of them I know will be remote. Some of them will literally be like, are you close to a military base? Cool, we can put you there, not a problem. So, and that goes for like anybody. There may be options coming down the road that you don't see online right this second.
Well, thanks. I have one follow-up for that then. What's the timeline for those jobs from like where you're at now to there's someone in the seat working?
So it really depends on the role and what's going on, what's needed for it. So for instance, I have roles right now that are probably right, like depending, I don't know your resume, I'd have to look at it, but like if
Yeah.
it's in finance, I have roles right now that are probably open that I can move people into. Now, timeline wise, let's just say, for instance, I'm literally putting out an offer today to somebody. They're gonna have to sign the offer, get it back to me. Most likely, they're not starting with us until mid-December, and if they don't hit December 15th, they're not starting till next year because the holidays, we're a ghost town here.
Yeah.
So right now, realistically, anyone that's just now applying probably won't be starting with us until mid-January. By the time you go through background check, if you need a clearance, if someone say doesn't have a clearance, we got to put you in for one. That could take an additional 3 weeks to 6 months, depending on if you have any things in your background. So that could
Yeah.
take a while. But yeah, I mean, if everything goes smoothly, probably, like I said, mid to January is probably the earliest we'd be starting people that are applying right now.
Oh, cool. That's a great timeline. It's an awesome timeline. So I'll be sending you my resume. So yeah,
Send it on over.
that's great. Thank you so much, guys.
All right. Well, hey, thanks, guys. Rick Estrada, Rob Pangaro from Guidehouse. I appreciate you very much coming on, dropping an hour worth of wisdom on these folks, taking resumes and all that stuff. And I'll definitely be reaching back to you guys. Love to have you again. Anything else you want to say before I cut you loose here at 3?
Ladies first, Rick.
Well, let's just say, I don't know. I would just add, don't be afraid to reach out. Use us. I mean, if we're connected with somebody, another organization that you want to learn more, reach out. I'm all about that. I'm again, don't be afraid.
Yeah, exactly. I don't care if you don't find something at Guidehouse that fits your bill. Still, like Rick said, reach out. I've worked for our competitors. I've worked with a lot of individuals and a lot of different agencies and institutions. I am happy to share my network with you guys anytime to get you where you want to go. So yeah, it doesn't hurt. First step is picking up the phone or sending us an email, and then we'll jump on and give you a hand.
You guys have been awesome. Thank you very much. We'll see you again really soon. And Kyle,